Welcome back to Ultimate Decades Challenge. This video is a recap of first decade. If you just discovered my Ultimate Decades playthrough and want to join for a ride but don't feel like rewatching all the previous episodes, or if you've seen it all already but want to reminisce on our journey so far, in this video I'm telling short version of what happened in first 8 episodes, and if you think about it, it all began even before 1300. In the land far away lived a little boy named Edmund. He grew up on the estate of a very wealthy man, working for him, just as his parents did. That old and very rich man made a good part of his fortune by selling eggs of a magical beast to other wealthy people in the kingdom. The beast in question was a massive fire-breathing dragon that, for some unknown reason, obeyed his master entirely, even though master himself rarely visited his dragon. Servants did all the labor around this beast. Little boy named Edmund grew up. His parents passed and he was all alone, spending his young adulthood days cleaning the place where dragon lived. Edmund disliked his master and his dragon. Master was cruel. It was not rare for him to punish a servant for no reason, just because he's in a bad mood. Dragon did the same, but his punishment was fire. Many servants who worked around him had scars from burns on their bodies, and some died because of how much they got burned. One day, after being yelled at by his master and yet another time burned by flames of his master's dragon, Edmund decided that he had enough. He made a plan to steal an egg, sell it, and use that money to set up a new little life for himself. Maybe buy a plot of land, build a hut, and just be free. He walked to the dragon early, at the crack of the dawn before any other servants woke up, and took an egg. No one even gonna know. Dragon doesn't lay eggs every day, so they will just think that on that day there wasn't any egg to begin with. But somehow they knew. Master knew. When he been told that dragon didn't lay an egg that day, he immediately said that it had been stolen, and they need to search a whole town for thief and bring him to an old rich man, dead or alive. Edmund had no choice but run away. He made his way through a forest. He walked for days and days until he reached the other side of the forest. He now arrived on the land of different king. He wanted to sell stolen egg here, so he could start his new life in a different town. But local people knew nothing about dragons or their eggs. They kept asking, what kind of bird lays this big of an egg? And is it edible? In the kingdom where Edmund grew up, dragon eggs is a relic, a status symbol, a trophy to be displayed. Only wealthy people could afford them. But here, no one cares. So that's where my Ultimate Decades Challenge story begins, with Edmund Brook and his useless egg. And now we can start in the year of 1300. Around 1300s, centuries of prosperity and growth in Europe came to a halt. A series of famines and plagues, including the Great Famine of 1315-1317 and the Black Death, reduced the population to around half of what it had been before the calamities. Along with the population came social unrest and endemic warfare. For Edmund, it started his new life in forest in Hanford-on-Begley called Bramblewood. He spent most of his time that year fishing. It allowed him to have source of food and something to sell. I started him with no money and no house, so a lot of beginning of this challenge spent on slowly trying to collect enough money to build his future home. He also doesn't really know what to do with an egg. I know, he doesn't. So for now it's just a reminder about his old life. and why he's here in the forest. Edmund started slowly meeting locals, vendors, bartender, or we can call her tavern keeper. He also met Nancy Landgrab, which led me to decide that Landgrab family owns this land, that Geoffrey Landgrab is the lord of this land. With his first money, Edmund bought a piece of cloth to sleep on and some vegetables and fruits to plant and start his own garden. In ultimate decades, your Sims can harvest their crops only once per season, so it's very important to have that garden ready and established for such a rare harvest. The main inconvenience for that period is definitely sleeping underneath rain.
The Frush, Woolly. Baranga, Miku. Kenneth,
Freeb.
Olaba, Flurbus.
Lindsay.
On the first day of 1301, Edmund met Martha Greenwood. He fell in love with her, and that made him very determined to start building his house. At first, it was just a couple of walls and a roof, but hey, that already means not sleeping underneath the rain. He also got himself a sink and bees. Bees is another source of food and money, and pain. Tavern became a place where Edmund and Martha could see each other. Edmund was visiting this part of Hanford often to sell fish and slowly save up for building a house, and Martha either was going to the market with her mom or her grandma Juliana stopping with her by the tavern. Either way, Martha was always under watchful eye of someone from her family. Edmund took it as an opportunity to introduce himself to Greenwood. He was very charismatic, well, he had to be. He had nothing else going for himself. It was very easy for Edmund to make everyone at the tavern laugh and charm Martha's mom. As years passed, Edmund and Martha were more and more in love with each other. One day they managed to sneak out from her grandma to hide behind tavern to kiss for the first time. But they've been caught by Martha's father, Garrett. He was quite upset about it. Or maybe just upset about Edmund's smell. Because after a little bit of talking, Edmund won his heart too. Garrett was amused by Edmund's jokes. Shortly after, Edmund managed to build a proper house. Well, it's just a box with a roof and a bed in it, but it counts. I just imagine that he kicks that egg every time he comes in after a whole day of fishing. Edmund also happened to find a ring in the water. Old, rusty, maybe smells like fish. I'm talking about ring, not Edmund. But it will do to propose. Of course, he made that ring himself, but for the story, he found it in the river. Equipped with a ring and a knowledge that he has a house, he went to Greenwood Farm, Martha's parents' farm, where he proposed to Martha, and she said yes. In the land far away lived a young, handsome man named Edmund. One day he met a lady in the woods. From that moment forward, his heart felt too big for his body. His thoughts was running and swirling, loud and noisy, and all about her. Every day when fishing, he was looking over the river, expecting to see her on the other side. After a whole year of drowning in the feelings he never felt before, he asked Martha to be his wife, and she said yes. They got married in the same forest they met for the first time, surrounded by Martha's family and blessed by the rainbow in the sky. From now on, they are a Burning Brook family. Oh god, that's not ominous at all. It's Matthias Parr, owner of a dragon whose egg Edmund has stolen, and that dragon egg is still in Edmund's house. I think we're going to ask Martha to go home. The last thing Edmund would want is for Martha to get involved in this situation. You don't have to be that judgmental. It's been almost 3 years since Edmund stole an egg and ran away with it. He managed to build a life for himself, life that he once dreamed of. And at this point he regrets stealing a dragon egg in the first place. because nothing would have changed if he didn't. He made no profit, only made an enemy in rich, influential man. So the only thing he can do now is beg for forgiveness, ask to spare his life, and promise to give Egg back. But Matthias doesn't want Egg back. He came here to say that he forgives Edmund and his theft, and he doesn't seek neither revenge or Egg. Edmund is baffled by such a news. Did his master search for him and traveled all this way just to say this? Matthias will say that he came here to deliver the words of approval from Dragon itself. Dragon approved Edmund as an owner of that egg, and Matthias will not disrespect Dragon's will. But he also came with warnings that having a dragon comes with a very high price. Edmund was very puzzled by this word. Is Matthias threatening him or just talking in riddles? But before Edmund couldn't ask any further questions, his old master took his leave. He clearly wasn't intending on elaborating any further, and only left dry "Farewell, Edmund" behind him. Edmund didn't take too long to ruminate on that conversation. He's happy to be alive and forgiven, and also don't own anything to Matthias. And his new wife waiting for him at the house. Marta is happy to see that Edmund is okay and that scary looking man didn't hurt him. But they are newly married couple, and as newly married couple, there is one thing that they must do. First goal after getting married in Ultimate Decades is obviously trying for baby, but it's actually a lot more complicated than that. Main household uses risky woohoo with a chance for pregnancy set at 25% for young adults, so we're not guaranteed pregnancy. Also, according to the rules, Edmund and Marta are supposed to have their try once a day, but after 4 or so days of trying, I allowed them to try twice a day. In total, it took them 11 tries, a lot more than expected. While they were trying, they just living their medieval peasant's life and finding their routine. Edmund was spending most of his time fishing. He was actually mastered fishing skill somewhere in that time period, and also occasionally going on hunting trips with Marta's father. And Marta was taking care of garden and animals, learning how to cook, knit, and forage. Also in that time we got chickens. It's 8. Too late, buddy. Our first animal, and also lost 3 chickens due to mysterious circumstances. Where did my chickens go? Where is your wife and a child? Where are they? Did they just wandered off, or they been eaten by foxes? Tell me the truth. Is it because I don't have any kind of enclosure for them? Am I the problem? And we had our first harvest in Ultimate Decades. Edmund and Marta harvested spring crops and planted summer ones. I built a church for Hanford, so when Marta was pregnant, we had our first proper going to church on Sunday. I meant to make it every Sunday thing, but we not done it ever since. Now my Sims have a place to come and worship a watcher or do sit-ups for no reason. When Marta was in her 3rd trimester, her mom Dulce came to stay with Brunenbrook household for a day, to be with her daughter when baby was born, just as a nice thing to do. And in the morning, after a whole night of thunderstorm, first baby in Ultimate Decades was born. And first death roll happened. Death rolls are main fun and pain of Ultimate Decades. They add element of unpredictability. No character is safe from them, so you can't put all your hopes on one sim. They might die. When baby was born, dice must be rolled for mom and baby, and then before entering every new age stage. And those rolls determined if Sims lives or dies. For birthing moms, chance to die only 5%. If Marta rolls 1, she will die, and if she rolls anything else, she survives. What do you think she rolled? 1. She rolled 1. Marta Bernenbrook died when giving birth to her first baby. It was our first death in Ultimate Decades. Her son, she gave birth to baby boy, and we named him Harold. I say we because that name was a viewer's suggestion. Thank you for a beautiful name idea. Harold lived, thankfully. But something else happened that day. As Marta was dying, dragon egg started cracking, and baby dragon hatched from When Edmund noticed a dragon, he felt in his heart that Martha's life was a price for this beast. He didn't want to admit it even to himself. Also basically explained nothing to those. Maybe that's why she lives in fear ever since. Every time I see her walking around in Hanford, she always scared. Maybe she traumatized and lives in fear now. Edmund became apathetic to everything for a while. He was just sitting near the river looking at the spot where they met for the first time and asking Watcher why was she taken from him. All his knowledge about dragons comes from being around one for a while, but not really interacting with it in any kind of way except cleaning its enclosure. Yes, he knows that dragons exist, that they breathe fire, lay eggs, but where they come from and what magic they bring with them, he doesn't know. I was planning this in a way that first death in this challenge will be trigger for egg hatching, but I wasn't ready for the death to be Martha. Edmund, my boy. He was once swimming in love and now he's drowning in grief. Day after Dulce left, she has her own kids to take care for at home. But Edmund clearly needed someone to help him function, so Juliana, Martha's grandma, moved with Burning Brook household. Yes, Harold is her great-grandson. This woman is ancient. Sorry, Julie. I mean it in awe. And Juliana has very different temperament from her daughter and granddaughter. She doesn't feel sorry for Edmund, oh no. She thinks he is the cause of all of his problem. She immediately decided that dragon hatching is related to Martha's death, and when she discovered the dragon was stolen, be sure she was regularly reminding Edmund how his dumb decisions involved Martha into dangerous magic. Despite all of that fighting, Juliana started living with Edmund and taking care of Harold. Then there was infant role for Harold, and he aged up from newborn to infant, and he survived that role. And I also wrote end of life role for Juliana, so she wouldn't be living forever with us. And she rolled 7, which means that she will live for another 7 years before she dies. But it was apparent that Edmund will need to remarry, because as I said earlier, it's very dangerous to put all your hopes on one theme. As much as I want for Harold to be Edmund's heir, I still need backups, because Harold could die before he becomes old enough to continue this legacy. Edmund met a woman who will become his second wife at the cemetery. He comes here to sit in front of Martha's grave and think, how could have that happened? How could have she been taken from him? Sometimes he takes Harold with him. He will notice that Harold is talking to another child, a toddler that comes here with his mom. Their family also suffered the loss. Father of the family died. His widow, Eden Goodman, really similarly to Edmund, comes to grave of her loved one as often as she could. They saw their sons bubbling to each other, and they started talking too. Talking and bonding over people and parts of themselves that they lost. Eden told Edmund the story of her life, that this little town is foreign to her. She was born and raised in Willow Creek and came to Hanford with her husband after they got married. Now, when he's gone, she has no one here but their son Peter, and to make things worse, her husband's brother kicked her out of the house they used to live in, claiming that now it's his house. Eden came to town church to seek shelter for herself and her son, and priest let them stay here for now, so they just been living in church tower. She doesn't have means to travel back to her parents, and even if she did, then she and Peter would just become burden to already struggling old couple. Edmund is obviously feeling sorry for his new friend, despite the fact that he thinks that no one's sorrows as bad and as painful as his, which is obviously very wrong perspective. He still wouldn't wish Eden that fate. As years passed, they became even closer. Accidental meetings at the cemetery turned into walks in the forest. Sometimes Edmund would bring some fish for Eden and her son, and when a whole year since Martha's death passed, Edmund thought that Eden may be the partner he needs and the mother that Harold needs. Also, maybe being confined to living with Juliana started getting on his nerves, and another person can bring some ease and some fresh air into their relationship. I think it's time to ensure the survival of this legacy challenge, and apparently for Edmund to have his Mr. Darcy moment and to propose in the rain. It's not gonna be exactly a romantic proposal. He will go to Eden and ask her to move in with him, and tomorrow they will go to church and get married. Now, when we arrived, imagine that there is like a bag with her things, she took all her belongings, took her child, she's ready to start a new life. So, Eden, have you ever heard about dragons? because I happen to have one. Edmund previously only told Eden that he is not from Hanford. He traveled for a long time to find a place to call home, to build a life for himself. He told her that his wife died in childbirth, but that's about it. Now he needs to tell her true story of his life. So, in the last day of 1306, Edmund and Eden got married in the church. Edmund, it's really not the time you're getting married today. Edmund, you need to wash yourself. Please, be normal. They actually didn't have any romance between them at that moment, only friendship. I made them engaged in Gus. How are you deeply in love? You had one romantic interaction and it was getting married. The same day as wedding, we also had a summer harvest, and we were planting fall crops until late at night and the next day too. And also the next day was Harold's birthday. He was aging up from infant to toddler, and he survived that role. As toddler, he was already looking like a little copy of Edmund. Edmund and Eden started trying for baby once a day, and we got a house upgrade. Very needed house upgrade. And here is how house is looking now. Basically the same but larger. We have kitchen now. What a massive upgrade. The rest of this house is for beds. Everyone has their own bed now. New family life started for Bernenbrook household. With two toddlers, Harold and Peter, they quickly became good friends and were spending a lot of time playing together and chasing chickens. Harold is like, "Are you a goose?" And Dragon didn't like that question. On the last day of 1307, Eden realized that she's pregnant, which is awesome news for Bernenbrook legacy. In the year 1308, sad news of King Mortimer's death struck Willow Creek. News left the castle, quickly spread through the city, and in the morning May reached the small town of Hanford and Bagley, along with the news about upcoming coronation of new king, Alexander Goss. We arrived at the tavern. I think the knight would be the one to tell her about king's passing. King Mortimer died, got sick or something. Now his son will rule, and we will have King Alexander Goth. And Juliana now can say that she's drinking for a reason, in the name of young king. And his wife. Alexander married Nancy II Landgrab, daughter of Geoffrey and Nancy Landgrab. I do regret naming her Nancy. At least she's now Nancy Goth. Simon, calm down. He ran to his wife to scream, "King is dead! Have you heard?" And Sarah, while pouring drink, just went, "We're talking about it." Juliana, who, by the way, ordered a second drink without my permission, will start telling a story about her seeing a King Mortimer on the day of his coronation. Over 3 decades ago, King Gunter Goss passed away. She already lived in Hanford back then, and some people from the town got together and traveled all the way to the Willow Creek just to see the young King Mortimer. At this point, most people in our small town already heard about the news. This is definitely something to talk about, and some of the locals, inspired by Juliana's story, decided to travel to the Willow Creek to see the young king on the day of his coronation. For a lot of them, it will be once-in-a-lifetime adventure to see the city, palace, and the royal couple. It started with Sarah the bartender and her husband and spread to others, and a group of 10 people who wanted to go formed. One of them is Edmund. Eden would wish to go, but she's heavily pregnant, not ideal timing. For her especially, she's from Willow Creek, it could have been a chance to see her parents. Eden wouldn't be able to go with them, but she will tell Edmund how to find her parents, and he will deliver the word from her, just to tell them that their daughter is alive and well, and bring back hopefully the same cheerful news about her parents. It's now 3 in the morning, and it's time for Edmund to wake up and get ready for a long travel ahead. After kissing kids and having some bread for breakfast, he also needs to take care of his dragon, feed and clean our little beast, and now it's time. In his new warm clothes with bread in his bag, he's ready to start his journey to Willow Creek. Edmund will go first to the house of Sarah and Simon Scott. They have a wagon and 2 donkeys, which will be a big help in getting to Willow Creek. From here we will collect other themes from our adventure team and start our journey. I tried to pick characters for whom it would make sense to want to travel, to spend a whole day on the road in horrible weather. Late in the evening, in the dark, our travelers from Hanford will finally arrive in the Willow Creek city. They will see the king's castle from afar with all its grandeur and warm candlelight in the windows. For the travelers in medieval times, it wasn't common to camp. They usually would go from town to town and either pay for a room in an inn if they can afford it, or look for a cheaper or free place to sleep. But I still decided that camping outside will be the most entertaining option to look at. Also, not that much sleep are gonna be done this night. While Edmund was partying somewhere in the city, Eden gave birth to baby boy. I chose name Ulrich for him, and that name too came from comments. Both Eden and Ulrich survived the birthing process, and the next morning it was finally time for coronation. Coronation of the king happens inside of the castle. Commoners such as Edmund and his party could not attend it. Only members of nobility were present to see a crown being placed on Alexander's Goth head and his queen consort Nancy Goth. And this moment will mark the beginning of his reign. Goth family ruled over Willow Creek and surrounding territories for hundreds of years. And last, recently deceased King Mortimer had a dark secret. He married a beautiful woman named Bella Bachelor many years ago. She comes from Windenburg nobility. Her family holds huge influence there. It was a perfect marriage for young Mortimer, and she was also gorgeous and charming. Mortimer fell in love, so did people of Willow Creek. Bella quickly became people's favorite member of Goth family. Their marriage seemed perfect. It also resulted in two beautiful children, Princess Cassandra and heir to the throne Prince Alexander, the one that's being crowned today. But it all fell apart one day when Bella went missing. She just disappeared. One day she was at the castle being everyone's favorite, and next day nowhere to be found. Did she run away, been murdered, kidnapped? No one knows. As loving husband and responsible king, Mortimer wanted to immediately start the search for missing queen, announce to the whole kingdom and send as many people as possible to look for her. But not everyone in the court was at the same opinion. His close advisors suggested to wait on telling the people of the kingdom about this devastating news. Queen's disappearance can damage king's image. People might be mad at him. It will ruin his reputation. It would be better to keep it a secret and trust with task of searching for a queen only with the most devoted king's soldiers. Mortimer agreed to that. A handful of soldiers began looking for Bella. Days passed, then weeks, then months. But Queen was still missing. People were beginning to be worried. Queen hadn't been in public for months, but King's advisors already come up with a way to conceal truth for even longer. They found a woman who looks like Bella, and found private teachers who taught her to talk and walk and behave like Bella, and presented King with such a solution. She will perform the role of people's beloved queen until they search for a real one on the background of that performance. And Mortimer agreed to that too. But what is supposed to be temporary solution went to last for years. Less and less people were looking for the missing queen, and Mortimer was getting more and more comfortable with his new wife, an obedient doll that only looks like his wife. He went on as far as having child with her, and she died in childbirth. It was a perfect ending for years-long performance, and no one was looking for Bella anymore. Alexander was too little to remember his real mom. Mortimer done everything so his son would believe that this woman living with them is his mother. Cassandra tried to do the opposite, to tell her little brother the truth, but perhaps he was too little. He grew up not knowing who to trust. He always more believed his father, and how his mom could be not his mom if she loved him so much. All that passed, and been buried in the graves of the Mortimer and woman that many believed to be Bella. Today Alexander becomes the king. Landgrabs obviously attending. How could they not? Nancy is so proud of herself for marrying her daughter to Alexander. She's the mother of the queen now. After crowns being placed on king and queen consort heads, they appear before the eyes of people. Everyone who wanted and could came to the castle grounds. It is the only day when commoners were allowed inside the castle wall. We can also see Willow Creek nobility on display, but some of them from other countries, like Bachelor's family or Matthias Parr and his wife. Edmund noticed familiar face. It's his chance to talk to his old master and ask his questions about dragons. Lord Parr is the only person who has the answers in the eyes of Edmund. So when King and Queen left and all of the noble people with them, Edmund was waiting for Par. He came up to them and asked if they could talk. Lady Par was very confused why this fish-smelling man talking to them, but her husband apologized to her and asked to wait a little. Conversation won't take too long. Par immediately assumed that egg has hatched. Edmund told him about baby dragon, about the fact that his wife died at the same time when dragon was born, and asked if those things are related and if dragon are dangerous for others. Of course they are related. You know it yourself, don't you? You feel it. Your life was your trade-off for owning a dragon. It's yours now. All yours. Dragons, when hatched, don't directly kill someone, but they need a lot of energy to hatch, equivalent to human life energy. It's not easy to drain person of their life energy, unless they already vulnerable, sick or injured, so I'm assuming birthing mother is vulnerable enough. The egg just picked closest person, but now when dragon is born, it's not gonna need energy anymore. Edmund was shocked and mad why Par didn't said it all when they met last time. Knowing that could have saved Martha's life, but when he asked, Lord Par just laughed at his face and said that he wanted Edmund to learn his lesson for stealing the egg. Edmund lost it, and he started screaming at Par, shoving him, and tried to start in a fight with him. Everyone gathered around them to see what's happening. I just want to see who will win, and he won. Edmund got beaten. People who came with him from Hertford are probably so confused now, just their local fishermen fighting some rich dude in another city. Now he's getting to the small village in Willow Creek, Foundry Cove. He is getting there on board of donkey to visit Eden's parents. She gave him directions and briefly told that their village is a little odd. Edmund is met by a group of men. Elder, his name is Dudley, is Eden's father. Edmund started talking to him, explaining that Eden got married to him after death of her first husband, and Dudley unfortunately had some very devastating news for Edmund. His wife, Eden's mother, passed away several months ago. He and Dudley sat at the fire talking for many hours that night. Eden rarely talks about her childhood here, and mostly gloomy things. How she had 6 siblings and none of them survived, how they struggled to grow food or keep animals alive. Sometimes she would mention scary figures in the forest that walk silently and wear masks. Dudley will say, life in this village has always been struggle. It is a stolen land after all. Hundreds of years ago, King of Willow Creek wanted more land and took this area from elves. No one now can tell details of how that happened. Then King gave this land to his people, your regular peasants, farmers, to build here a new town on the remains of those intricate elven castles and shrines. And they tried, but it is almost like soil itself doesn't want people here. Something always goes wrong. Crops are dying from illnesses or destroyed by weather, animals and people constantly getting sick, even houses seem to fall apart for no reason. Like these hills are sliding down, trying to shake people off of themselves. And yet people believe that elves still roaming in the woods, all around us, waiting the day to get their land back. As Dudley was talking, Edmund was looking around. Not to see elves, just at the village. The arches and pieces of walls, tiny crumbs of elven buildings almost looked better than houses built by people. Houses looked as if they built to blend in with surroundings. Ruins stood bright and grand, unapologetic reminders of true owners of this land. Edmund couldn't get his eyes off of them. As he and Dudley were talking, other people were hanging out around the fire too. It was a little odd. It's so late. Edmund already arrived late. He was a little busy, being beat up by his old enemy, publicly. Dudley said that people here always complaining about not being able to sleep or having nightmares, so there are always someone awake outside, which is kind of calming knowledge. But Edmund was getting really tired and sleepy. Dudley showed him a bed that he can occupy for the night. Edmund is sleeping today in this little house. That night was also Ulrich's birthday. He was going from newborn to infant, but he unfortunately didn't survive the role. Edmund decided to follow creepy figure he saw through the window. He was disoriented by his nightmare and scared by whoever was watching him sleep. Yet he followed them. He wanted nothing more than follow them. Weird, eerie pull was tugging him out of the house and into rainy night. As person in the mask getting further and further. There were actually people outside. None of them stopped Edmund. When he heard words weird figures wearing masks, last thing he imagined was an animal skull. Yet he followed them. They had the same magnetic aura as ruins. Edmund followed that person into the forest, but at some point they just disappeared. Confused, he noticed a tree. Is it glowing? How odd. His thoughts about this weird tree interrupted by someone's voice. Struggling to sleep? Asked man standing behind him. Where did he come from? You're risking getting sick, wandering in your shirt and hose in the cold rain. And suddenly Edmund felt the cold. His whole body was shivering, but somehow he didn't notice it earlier. I followed you from the village. You looked, let's say, concerning. Chasing elves? Be careful, you might find them. He said it in an easy and playful tone. It made Edmund smile. He remembered this man now. He is from the village, but Dudley said that he is new here. He just kind of appeared one day. His name was Fernando, and other people in the village think that he's odd. Weird one. But maybe they are weird. None of them followed Edmund or stopped him from going alone into the forest. There is also something about Fernando's presence and voice that was very comforting to Edmund. He felt calm, almost oddly calm. Edmund will say that he didn't used to believe in elves, but apparently now he believes enough to follow one into the woods. But why is that elf was looking at Edmund? Just checking new human in the village? Did elf give him nightmares? And where did it go? Oh, that's a very good question. I would love to know that too. As they were talking, morning started to come, and trees stopped glowing. But Edmund might start thinking that he imagined it all. The dream, the elf, the glowing tree. I think it's enough talking in the rain to strangers. It's time to go back to the village, dry your hose next to the fire, and have a chat with Dudley. Edmund, confused, slightly scared by all of the weird stuff that happened to him. He will tell Dudley about elf, nightmare, even glowing tree in the forest. Surprisingly, Dudley will reassure him that all of that was likely to be real. People are seeing those creatures roaming around village all the time, whether they believe in them or not. They rarely go inside of the village or step too close to houses, and if they do, they usually go into that fallen flower statue. Watcher knows what it does. People are scared of it. They even put a fence around it to stop kids playing in the pond that statue fell in. Dudley, similarly to all the locals, doesn't know much about elves or their magic. They don't understand it, so they're scared of it. And that statue, in a way, became a symbol of all of the things they scared of. They tried to avoid it. People that first came to live on the land stolen from elves tried to destroy the statue, but couldn't. No human instrument could break the stone, and no animal could move it from its place, so they just left it. Elves that are still living in the Willow Creek forests formed small community, small coven, if you will. They hiding from people to not anger the king and his army, and one day maybe again be strong enough to take their land back. They kept old traditions, one of which to wear masks that cover the whole face. Face of a person is something personal or even intimate for them, and looking at someone else's face considered invasive and rude. People without knowing the true reason behind masks obviously came up with their own interpretations. That elves are just scary and ugly, or their faces are rotten, or they have some animalistic features, maybe bird beaks, for example. In reality, elves are very similar to humans, but there is something in being denied access to someone else's face that made humans want to find the nastiest, the most offensive explanation. There is someone in those woods that doesn't cover their face, yet looks even less human than elves. Skittish and gloomy fairy. She lives with the elves, helps them and they help her. She possesses very powerful magic and zero survival skills. So in many ways she became dependent on elves. Fairies don't live in this realm. They clearly can enter it, But Diamond, the fairy, doesn't remember how she got here or how to get back to other fairies. She's stuck here with elves, but most devastatingly with people. Regular people bodies never been touched by magic. Fairy body, on the other hand, is saturated by magic, and when fairy near someone untouched by magical energy, she feels physically ill, almost like she suddenly can feel the blood moving inside of her veins, and it feels so uncomfortable, makes her skin crawl and head spin. Because of that, Diamond almost never comes out of Elf's little hiding spot, Sylvan Glade, a room that she opened inside of the magical tree. But people don't know all of those things. They just trying to survive, and as their parents told them, to avoid weird figures wearing masks in the forest. Dudley and Edmund were talking about elves and struggles of living in this village, and Edmund offered Dudley to live with him to Hanford and live with Brook's family. It is clear that nothing good happens to the people that live here, so why not live? So nothing good could happen to you in different place, but your daughter and grandchildren will be close. As Dudley and Edmund finished talking, Fernando came up to Dudley and said that he heard that Dudley is moving out and he will probably want to sell his house, or rather hut, and Fernando would like to buy it. Heard from who? They finished talking literally right now. But originally Dudley thought that he will just abandon his hut. If he can get some money for it, for his family, for Eden, he only happy to do so. Don't worry, I'm only going to give him 500 simoleons. But Fernando was acting very odd, and now he has a hut in this village, so he's proper villager. And as Edmund getting bullied by this child, and Fernando talking to himself on the background, we look at this village for the last time. Last time for Edmund and Dudley. Me and you will visit it in the future with different characters. At least I hope so. That is what I want for my ultimate decays. To create an alive world. A world that moves and changes even if Edmund or any of his descendants is not here to witness those changes. But sometimes my characters will stumble into those stories, or hear about them from someone, so I can tell the stories to you. And I think it's only right to include these pieces of stories in recap videos. They are as important as roles and Ultimate Decades events. After that eventful travel, it was back to Bramblewood and peasant life. Edmund and Dudley arrived late at night at the Brook house in the woods. Dudley was happy to see his daughter and his grandson. There was a hope for calmer, happier life. We bought a bed for Dudley and a cow. That was a very big upgrade for this family. And more chickens. Cold autumn days were filled with warm meals, family sitting around the fire and talking, plotting how to get through the winter together. I did roll end of life roll for Dudley. He rolled 6, so he will live with us for 6 years. And Eden find out that she's pregnant again. With that comes the very last day of 1309, the Edmund's birthday, and scary roll. To survive adult roll, Sim needs to roll more than 9, and Edmund rolled 2. We ended first decade with the death of Legacy Foundry. Well, that was a lot to cover in one video. If you've seen all of the previous episodes and decided to watch this recap, you would help me a lot with your feedback in the comments. Did I include enough details? Maybe too much details? Maybe forgot to mention something important? And what do you think about idea of such a recap in general? And for those of you who are still watching, you must be really involved in this legacy. So it's appropriate to talk about family tree right now. I'll show it to you. This is what it looks like for now. This is very zoomed in version of just Edmund's lineage. This is called Family Tree Up. This is basically just me walking in footsteps of Morbid Gamer and using the exact same app for Family Tree as she did. For a good reason, it's very easy to use, very intuitive. And unlike apps that made for Sims 4 family trees, this is made for real life family trees, so it has years. But this is not actual family tree, obviously, it lacks a lot of information. Where I actually keep full family tree is in this app. It's called My Family Tree. This is very in-depth software for genealogy. You can make a bunch of databases and statistics in it. I think it's made for studying or something. Of course, I had to choose the most complicated and over-the-top tool to do my silly little video game family tree. When I click on Edmund, we can see his name, age, years of birth and death, where he was born or where he was died, because I technically never named the city where he was born. If you're curious, the house of Matthias Parr is in Newcrest, but it's like a temporary solution. And I also added his occupation, fisherman, and it adds automatically his relationship. I never actually created Edmund's parents, I just like said that they dead. You can add a lot more actually in here, more pictures, more data about them, and you can like add historical events into this app and then see them with your people on timeline. It's a lot, it's fascinating, and we can see obviously his 3 kids. His 3rd child is not born yet. Oh, and I can actually put year and see their actual ages. Now we started 1310. I can see that Eden is he's only 25. My girl buried 2 husbands and pregnant with 3rd child, and she's 25. And if I click on Eden, I can see her 3 marriages with her 1st husband. He actually always had name, I just never mention it, Reginald Goodman, and with Edmund, and her children, Peter, Ulrich, and baby, and her parents, Dudley and Felberta. And if I click on Martha, Martha has even more family. Actually accidental, if you're ever curious why Edmund doesn't have parents, but Martha has a whole lineage before her. I might have a different video. I made her family for... I did trying to recreate Tudor Christmas in Sims 4, and I made Greenwood family for that. And then I decided to use them in Ultimate Decade. So we have her siblings here, teenage sisters and child brother, her parents, and Juliana. I don't know if 78 years old is a realistic number for medieval times for anyone to live that long, but I guess she can be 78. And if I click, for example, on Harold, I can see his parents' branches. And it would be interesting in the future when Harold grows up and hopefully gets married, how his 5 family tree will add to this and will make it even more big and complicated. I'm excited to see that. Yes, this is Ultimate Decade's family tree, which looks like it's Juliana's family tree, even though it's supposed to be Edmund's. Very last thing that I show you, that I actually made a goth family tree. I do intend on following the story of royal family, our goth royal family further, and visiting them and seeing what happens with their lives. I made their family tree just for fun. This Mortimer and Bella. This is real Bella. If we click on Mortimer, we can see both real Bella and fake Bella, and as you can see, real Bella does not have death year. And I also added a real name for fake Bella. She's a person, she had the name before. I chose the Freen. This is all of the Mortimer's children, Cassandra, Alexander, and Oswin. This is our current king, Alexander Goth, and his wife, Nancy Goth, or C. Goth, because it sounds like Seamouse. No, I regret her name. And Nancy Goth is daughter of Nancy Landgrab and Geoffrey Landgrab. Landgrab tree is actually worse, because all 3 siblings already married. Malcolm married to Dina Landgrab. It was Dina's dream to marry into Landgrab family for money and status. I have some notifications set up for my played households, and Malcolm not the most faithful husband. He's having babies with other women, but not with his wife. And John just married, had a child, moved on with his life. And Alexander and Nancy got 2 children, Elodie and Anton. Game gave him this name, and at first I was like, oh, it's hilarious. But his oldest son, and I don't think I can cope with King Anton in the future. So I think I will rename him, and I will probably name him after actual 13th century king. The only other branch that I didn't show you is Bella's brother Michael's family. He married and has 2 children. And this is a goth family tree that no one asked for. I feel like I can become too obsessive over stories I create. This is all for this video. I hope it was interesting to kind of see the story of 10 years in Ultimate Decades in one video. That is all for this video. If you liked it, don't forget to leave it a like, comment on it, subscribe to our channel if you want to see more video about Ultimate Decades, and also other stuff. I do other Let's Plays too, and I'll see you in the next one. Off to the new decade we go. Bye!